Hey scholars, so we're going to start off with our introduction right now to our nonfiction text about animal classification. As we go through this nonfiction text, our fictional character named Rattenborough is going to be taking us through our exploration of animals. So if you want to get out your glossary from the previous activity from our introduction, that will probably help you find the definitions of some of the words that we'll see in our introduction in chapter 1. So we have our table of contents. We'll have 9 chapters in this unit, and I probably think that we will go ahead and go into these extra passages as well. If you guys have any requests for these, we've got Jane Goodall, deep sea fishing, and tree frogs. If y'all are interested in any of those topics, let me know and I'll make sure to make those videos first. So we're going to start off today with just the introduction, classifying living things, and then I had some materials ready to prepare chapter 2 as well. So here's our introduction. You can read along with me. If you lose your spot, just go ahead and pause the video and go back to where you found your place, and then you can catch up to read along with me. So introduction, meet Rattenborough. Greetings, Rattenborough, the famous explorer and animal expert here. Remember me? I taught you all about animals and habitats when you were just little kids in first grade. I've been busy since then traveling around the world. But I'm back now to teach you everything I've learned about animals during my travels. First, let's take a quick look at what you learned in first grade. Do you remember what a habitat is? A habitat is the place where animals and plants live. We learned that there are different habitats all over the world with different kinds of animals and plants living there. You guys will notice there were some of those bold words that we learned in our vocabulary preview, and those are going to be important as we go on. These words may be more familiar, but we'll come to words that are more unfamiliar to you as we read. We visited a desert habitat where it was very hot and dry. It hardly ever rains in a desert, so the plants and animals that live there have to be able to get by with very little water. I bet you remember that cactus plants live in the desert. Oops. Just wait just a second and that'll go away. Along with snakes and lizards. We also visited an African savanna. A savanna is also called a grassland. There were lots of interesting animals living there. Zebras, elephants, and even lions. To be perfectly honest, I was always a little nervous while we were in the savannah. Next, we checked out some different kinds of forests. We went to a hardwood forest full of trees with leaves that change color and drop off in the fall. We saw squirrels, deer, and even bears. We saw lots of different kinds of birds in those tall trees. Then we visited a tropical rainforest that was very hot, humid, and wet. There were lots of birds in this forest too. These birds were colorful tropical birds like toucans and parrots. Last but not least, we visited, move my screen so I can see, freshwater Sorry about that technical difficulty, we could have figured it out. So last but not least, we visited freshwater and saltwater habitats. In the freshwater habitat, we saw fish, turtles, ducks, and beavers. In the saltwater habitat of the sea, we saw starfish, crabs, lobsters, and sharks. Besides learning about habitats in first grade, we also studied the different kinds of things that animals eat. Do you remember talking about herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores? We learned that you can sort animals by what they eat. So get ready because we're going to learn a lot more about how to sort animals. Rattenborough, your personal animal expert at your service. See you next time. All right, and we're ready to move on to chapter 1, classifying living things. If you remember from our glossary, we can find that word classify. And when we classify, that means the definition we have to put things into groups based on similarities or type, and we can change that word if we're doing it in the present. We are classifying. If we've already done it, we have classified. Rattenborough here. Do you remember who I am? I'm here now to help you learn about how scientists sort or classify living things into groups. Since I am an expert on animals, we will focus mainly on animals. First, I'm going to ask you two very important questions. How do you know if something is living or non-living? What important characteristics do all living things have? All living things create energy from food. All living things can have babies or make other living things just like themselves. All living things have a life cycle. They start out small and they grow. All living things change to fit in better with their habitat. And then there's a photograph or a few photographs right here, and the caption says, all living things are classified by their characteristics. Plants make up one group of living things. We know this because plants have the same characteristics that all living things have. Plants create energy from food. They make their own food using the sun, water, and gases in the air. Plants make seeds that become new plants. Plants grow from small seeds into seedlings that become adult plants. Plants can adapt to their habitat. Remember, the word adapt means to change. For example, all plants need water, but a cactus in a dry desert does not need as much water as other plants. And here, this looks like the life cycle, different parts of the life cycle for different plants. Plants have the characteristics that all living things have. Animals of all shapes and sizes are living things too. So animals that have the same characteristics that all living things have. Animals get energy from the food they eat. Animals can have babies. Animal babies are small but grow into adult animals. Animals can adapt to their habitat. For example, the fur of polar bears looks white so they can blend in with the snow where they live, kind of like that rabbit that we looked at in our vocabulary preview. So animals have the characteristics that all living things have. Remember to check on these photographs. Some raccoons, a polar bear, maybe a cheetah or a leopard, a caterpillar, and some little birds at their nest. These birds are called robins that have the red chest of feathers. Animals have the characteristics that all living things have. That caption is really important too, so that we can make sure we get all of the information in our nonfiction text. Plants and animals are both living things, but plants and animals are different in important ways. For example, animals move from place to place, but plants do not. Scientists study how living things are alike and different and sort, or classify, them into large groups called kingdoms. There are 5 kingdoms of living things. You have learned about 2, the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. You will learn about other kingdoms in later grades. The living things in each kingdom can be sorted into more specific groups. Scientists study animals with the animal kingdom and classify them by their characteristics they share with other animals. One way scientists classify animals into more specific groups is by checking if an animal has a backbone. Insects do not have backbones, but birds and fish do. So animals with a backbone are in a different, more specific groups of the animal kingdom. Insects make up the largest group in the animal kingdom, but there are other large groups of animals, such as birds and fish. You will learn more about other major groups in future chapters. So we have our little diagram right here, little flow chart showing that these are all living things. They can be classified into different kingdoms, like plants and animals. And from there, we can classify them more specifically as vertebrates, animals that have a spine, or invertebrates, animals that do not have a spine. I wonder if later we can classify these down into even further, smaller groups based on their characteristics. The caption here says, scientists classify living things into 5 kingdoms. They classify animals into other groups by their characteristics. And remember, what are characteristics? When we talk about characteristics, that's something that a person, a thing, or a group has that makes them different. We classify the things around us so we can get to know our world better. As we learn about living things, we also learn about ourselves and our place in the world. So far, scientists have classified over 1 million different kinds of animals. Most of these are insects. Many scientists think there may be close to 10 million other animals that have still not been classified. 10 million other animals that haven't been classified on our planet Earth. I wonder if you'll discover some of those. That's all for now. Rattenborough over and out. I'll be back in the next chapter to tell you more about how animals are classified into different groups. And here we have a photograph of some different insects. I can definitely classify these into different groups as well. I see some have larger wings, some are different colors. There's lots of ways that we could further classify these insects. Insects are the largest group of animals. So that means not that the insects themselves are very large, but as a group, there are more insects than there are fish. There are more different types of insects than there are birds, than there are mammals. So insects are the largest group, even though they are very small. So scholars, that is it for now. You can follow this playlist for the next video where we'll talk about chapter 2. Thanks for listening and hope that you guys are doing well.